And this is the Y'all Show, talk with a Southern accent. It is our Southern political report here on the program that's all about the South. And we're going to mix in a little Southern politics with the coronavirus talk and the great territory of Puerto Rico. And we're going to do all that courtesy of our next guest. Julio Rivera is the editorial director of reactionarytimes.com. And he's on with us right now to give his unique perspective as he calls himself a Conservarican. And he's on with us right now on the Y'all Show. Hello, Julio.
Hey, how are you today, John? Can you speak up just a little bit? I'm having trouble hearing you.
I'll be happy to. And I'll also try to make it where you can understand me because I'm one of those Southerners, Julio, which you're a real Southerner. No. You're a real Southerner.
I definitely can understand you. I spent a lot of time in the South, so I'm familiar with the accent.
Okay. Well, where have you spent time in the South?
Oh, all over the entire southern east coast of the United States. Actually, since 2001, I've traveled there extensively. One time in 1 month, I traveled to every major city in the southeastern United States. It was part of when I was in the music business. We were on a promotional tour for a client of a marketing company that I was with, and we started in New Orleans, and we zigzagged as far west as Houston, as far south as Miami, and all through the Carolinas, Virginia, Tennessee, Georgia. We were basically everywhere. Alabama. There wasn't a state in that area that we didn't touch that month.
Okay. Well, Julio, do we need to give you?
Ate a lot of catfish too, by the way. Ate a lot of catfish.
Well, if you spent time in the South like that, Julio, and you're a native of Puerto Rico, did you see similarities between Puerto Rico and the South?
Not necessarily. Yes, in some ways, no in others. I think, the climate-wise, it's very similar. You see a lot of the same type of, foliage and those sorts of things. But, Puerto Rico's its own little, I'm not going to be politically correct about this. It's a mess in Puerto Rico. The politics are horrible. There's a lot of criminality there, a lot of pay to play. It's just really a mess down there. I feel really ashamed as a Puerto Rican of, what's become of the island politically under, liberal rule.
We're visiting with Julio Rivera, editorial director of revolutionarytimes.com. And as I said,
reactionarytimes.com.
I'm sorry.
Reactionary.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sure I'm not the first
People
person.
make that mistake all the time. It's all good. Don't worry about
it. It was a bad reaction from me. I apologize for you.
Yes.
Right here.
No, I'm just kidding.
Where are you from in Puerto Rico? What town?
Well, my mother's family is from Manatí, which is the town where Carlos Beltran, the baseball player, comes from. My father's family lived in Barceloneta, which is like basically in Spanish for little Barcelona, and that's where my mother resides now. I was actually born in New Jersey, though.
Oh, really?
So this accent that you hear is a New Jersey, a northeastern, similar to a New York accent.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense now. Check it out on Facebook. As Julio, he's at the Conservarican on Facebook, and also the Reactionary Times. They're available on various social media outlets at Reactionary TMS. So if you have the nickname Conservarican, you must be a conservative Puerto Rican. Is that a bold guess?
Exactly.
There?
Yes.
Okay. And how many conservative Puerto Ricans?
You could have been a detective, actually, being able to pick that up out of hearing that.
Yeah. So how many conservative Puerto Ricans are there?
You know what? Not nearly enough, to be honest with you. It's funny. I was at CPAC, and I was walking around, and I only saw one other one, which was Rich Valdez, who hosts a conservative radio show on WABC Radio. There's really not a whole heck of a lot of us, and that's sad. It's a sad commentary. I'm actually backing one of the candidates for Congress this year, who comes from the congressional district where I grew up, which is very large minority district, a lot of Black Americans and a lot of Hispanic Americans of all, different nationalities. But Billy Prempa is running in that district, and he's got his ear to the streets. He comes from, not a neighborhood not far from mine. And it's actually sad that there's not enough conservative Puerto Ricans, enough conservative Blacks. When you consider basically what the results have been under this administration. I mean, the unemployment numbers for blacks and Hispanics under President Trump have been overwhelmingly better than Barack Obama, and they've been the best numbers, in fact, ever put up in history. And you look at the numbers for, entrepreneurship, I think blacks and Hispanics are very entrepreneurial people, and we stand to do a lot better under conservative policies than we ever do, under the handout and entitlement system of the progressive left.
Makes a lot of sense. Visiting with Julio Rivera, editorial director at reactionarytimes.com. He's also a featured columnist at Washington Times, which is a very good media company based out of Washington, D.C. We've had people from that outlet on our program here many times. And as I said, you've kind of made the switch, evidently, from music to politics here, Julio.
Yes.
How has that been?
It's been good. I'll tell you honestly, what happened with me was I was, working in the music business in the early part of the millennium. And, I wound up having a child. And then, at that point, chasing dreams of, being in the music business kind of wasn't feasible anymore. I had to go to work. So I did go into the private sector, which I had a background in debt collection and whatnot. And then after about 7 years as an executive for a national debt collection company, I actually purchased a division of the company and went into business for myself. And then I found myself having all kinds of issues with, big government intervention. I think Dodd-Frank and some of the lawsuits that came out of, the business of selling and reselling debt kind of hampered the industry. So I kind of became a political activist in the wake of that. And then I got very heavily involved in, writing about politics, writing about business. And in particular, I have an interest in cybersecurity, which I think, the next war, World War III, is really going to be a cyber war. And I think that there's already a lot of instances of countries attacking countries' infrastructure, via the means of cyber hacking. And, China in particular, it's funny, we talk about China all the time, especially now in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic. China's been attacking us for years that way, in addition to the intellectual property theft and the trade imbalances and just all the other things that they do. So I kind of I became very, very involved, and I don't want to say obsessed with it, but it became a very, important thing to me. And I've spent a lot of my time, blogging, writing columns in a lot of major websites, in addition to starting reactionarytimes.com and, producing Reactionary Times TV, which you can see always on our Facebook page and our YouTube and on AUN on the West Coast. This week, we're actually going to have Alan West, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West will be our guest this week. But we always do a show, and we always talk about the important issues going on right now in the world politically. I think that people who are apolitical or say that I don't get involved in politics are really some of the most foolish people around when you consider that, politics has an effect on our lives, whether we want it to or not. And the largest investment that people from the working class and up will ever make in their lives is it's to government. It's the taxes. We pay more in taxes than we pay in anything else if you're a working class person from, the time that you go into the workforce to the time that you retire. So, I think it's quite foolish to not have an interest in politics.
ReactionaryTimes.com is the website for Julio. Our website right here is Yall.com, the ultimate guide to the South. And I am so glad, Julio, you made the switch from debt collection to what you're doing now. Not that we have anything against debt collectors out there, but we're excited about what you have at reactionarytimes.com. And here in the South, we're a pretty conservative portion of the United States. So I assume you've got a lot of viewers and people that click on your articles, and you get a lot of feedback from right here in the South. And I want to know what the people of the South and the rest of the country are saying to you and what you're writing about specifically to this pandemic. Are we going to get out of this thing okay?
Well, ultimately, I think a lot of people are concerned with, what's being perceived. And really it's a governmental overreach. I think right now the progressives, the statists that exist within our government at all levels are using the coronavirus pandemic as kind of, the excuse, the justification for the trampling of a lot of our rights. I mean, I know in New Jersey, to give you an example, the state where I resided in until I left to live in Europe temporarily last year. Phil Murphy used the coronavirus pandemic as an excuse to remove the section of the state website where applications for new gun permits are placed. I mean, what does one have to do with the other? And then you have people saying that you can only buy certain items, deeming what they consider, essential items and goods during a period where, people are restless, quite frankly, and they're spending a lot of time at home and they're afraid of the future. They don't know what the future is going to be. And I think a lot of times taking away some simple things from people, like not being able to, buy barbecue goods, not being able to buy home improvement goods. They could be working on their house right now with their idle hands, as opposed to what a lot of people seem to be doing based on the crazy posts I read on social media. A lot of people seem to be just sitting around their house drinking wine all day, and putting up all types of crazy posts. People are losing their minds out there. I mean, at the end of the day, people want to be active. They want to get back to work. And quite frankly, there's a lot of sections of the United States that weren't really particularly hit hard by the coronavirus. They should have been up and moving and going all along. They shouldn't have been subjected to a lockdown in any way, shape, or form if you're in a place where there's really no cases of coronavirus. So, I think a lot of people are going to be ruined from this financially. That's going to cause irreparable harm to a large sect of Americans, especially small private business. A lot of these people aren't going to recover. And we have people like Nancy Pelosi putting a hold on these relief packages for small businesses. Obviously, the first relief package kind of got, I guess, expired. The funds dried up, and you have Nancy Pelosi right now holding up, further legislation that can help save a lot of American businesses, which are, quite frankly, the backbone of the American economy. I mean, these small businesses, sole proprietorships, people who are self-employed, a lot of these people are that group of people who work under that designation is a large percentage. I would dare I say the majority of workers nowadays, now that we've switched from less of a manufacturing economy and more of a services-based economy.
Julio, I want to ask you, here in the South, we are doing things a little bit different, it appears, in terms of our governors. And many of our Southern governors, from Brian Kemp in Georgia to Henry McMaster in South Carolina, even Bill Lee in Tennessee, all Republicans, by the way, they're trying to kind of get out in front of the national curve in terms of reopening. Do you think there's going to be some fallback from that, from, I guess, heading into November, of these Republicans, if this thing doesn't go well in terms of reopening the region?
Well, I mean, I think that there's a couple different ways to look at it. There was a study out of the state of California stating that it's believed that California in some form has achieved herd immunity, because it's believed by a lot of people that coronavirus has actually been in the state of California since November, and it was spreading like wildfire. And people were getting it in small doses and slowly but surely building up immunity to it. And that's the reason why their curve flattened before anybody else's, because they had already been dealing with it for an extended period of time, at least a little bit longer than most of the rest of the country. And I think that what happens is you tuck people away, and they're within their own sort of, I guess, dramatic ecosystem, if you want to call it that. They're not being exposed to all of the other things that they need to be exposed to in order to continue to build up immunity. So when people initially go out, there might be another spike. How that spike is interpreted and how it's politicized, I think, is what's going to have an effect in November. So a lot of these Republican governors are sort of in a no-win situation, because it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you don't open up the economy quick enough, your core, your base is going to turn on you, saying that you didn't care enough about the worker and you didn't care enough about the business owner. If you open it up too fast, and because people have been, have had a failure to be exposed to a lot of, just the general, germs and bacteria that we normally, would absorb on a regular basis just going through life. If our immune systems are weakened because our immune systems haven't been tested, so to speak, recently, and then you have a upward spike of new coronavirus cases, then the political left is going to attack you or not caring about, the sanctity of life. How ironic, right? That the liberals are going to say that Republicans don't care about life, the baby killing leftists. But, it's really a bad situation. I'm glad that I talk about politics. I'm an activist for the politics that I believe in, but I'm not envious of these people who actually work in politics and have elections to win this coming November. I think it's going to be very, very difficult, no matter what political party you're a part of and no matter what position you take right now on the coronavirus pandemic.
Wrapping up our conversation with Julio Rivera of Reactionary Times, and you were just picking on some of the people out in California, I think, sitting around drinking wine, and we're showing our Facebook and YouTube audience and Yall.com audience right now a photo bomb of you drinking wine, and you've got Judge Deneen and Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina right there in that photo, as well as Jared Kushner. And they weren't drinking, but you were. So I don't know what the occasion was, but a nice photo bomb regardless.
Yeah, that was actually at Trump Hotel.
Oh, was it? Okay.
It was actually during Judge Janeen's book party, which I was lucky enough to be invited to. And there were a lot of very important people were there. Don Jr. actually not pictured. He was there. Kimberly Guilfoyle. Basically, all the big Hollywood, all the big DC players were there that night, and I was very happy to have been invited to enjoy that evening. It was actually a great party.
Was the wine good?
The wine was good. Yeah, at Trump Hotel, they only serve the best booze. I will tell you that.
I've been in there. The bathroom is amazing there. I don't know if you went in there, but it's gold as you might expect, and it's a very nice property there in Washington, D.C., the old post office.
Yeah, you're truly sitting on a throne when you do a number two there.
Speaking of the president, as we wrap up with you, Julio, is he going to get through this okay? Is this coronavirus going to really hurt his chances in November?
I don't think that. I think that right now, I think his base is still with him. I think a lot of people are going to perceive, based on his economic victories of the early part of his term, are going to see him as the only man with the skill set to be able to save our economy through this. Now, what exists, the mechanisms that may bring him down are, should we not have a traditional election, an election where we're depending more on mail-in votes and other methods of tabulation, which I think will be ripe for fraud. And, the Democrats are generally synonymous with, different types of voter fraud. And I think that it's going to be an opportunity for them to, quote unquote, steal the election from Trump. But I still think if he's running against Joe Biden, sleepy Joe Biden, who at this point can't really even form concise sentences at this point, he's just really, really bad. I feel really bad for him. I think right now he's being kind of manipulated. They're taking advantage of him. I don't have sympathy for him because of the life that he's led and what his politics have been, but the fact that he's being, I think, used right now, and he's a puppet of a larger system, is kind of sad that they'll take somebody who's mentally compromised, because I truly believe he is. I think he's slipping, more quickly than slowly into dementia, and I think that he's really a pathetically weak candidate. So I don't think that he can beat President Trump with anything less than a dishonest effort based around voter fraud.
That's okay, though. Michelle Obama is going to come right in and take over the ballot, I guess.
Yeah. Or if Hillary Clinton, let's say Hillary Clinton gets that, he's going to pick a woman. I hope he picks Stacey Abrams, actually.
Really?
I think that would be a great ticket. Gappy and Gampy. Gappy and Gampy 2020. I think it'll be like Laurel and Hardy. It'll be like Abbott and Costello. It'll be a national comedy show.
All right. Hate mail to reactionarytimes.com. And we're wrapping up our conversation with Julio Rivera on Facebook, The Conservarican. That's where you'll find it. And speaking of reactionarytimes.com, as we wrap up with you here, Julio, what all you got going on there on the website this week?
Well, right now, our lead story, we have a column about the Jones Act and the economy, post-coronavirus pandemic and China's influence. How should we limit China's influence, by former Congressman Ernest Istook. He submitted that piece to us. We have a lot of great daily news. I mean, if you want to get your breaking news anywhere that, you're not going to be manipulated, our news is who, what, when, where, why. Our opinion pieces are clearly labeled as editorials, and you're going to get opinion there, you're going to get spin there. But our news is who, what, when, where, why. If you want the truth, the real news, without getting one person's or one news source or one thought leader's point of view, go to Reactionary Times. You can read the news there and make your own opinion.
Julio Rivera, thank you very much for coming on today's Y'all Show, and best of luck there at reactionarytimes.com.
Hey, well, thank y'all.
All right. I like the way you said that. And that will wrap up our political report here on today's Y'all Show. Don't forget, we've got barbecue talk. I think Julio would approve of that. That's coming up in hour 2 of this, the show that's all about the South. This is the Y'all Show.